So today I have with me my very good friend, Dr. Stephen Hill. And if I can just brag on you for a hot second, Dr.
You
Hill
make
and
me
I
blush.
have known each other for a couple of years now. And what I love so much about him is his heart to help people. And he's never the doctor that you'll see that will just prescribe you stuff that you don't need, so you keep coming. He really wants to make a difference in the world and has a similar mission to myself. So I'm so excited to have you with us and share the wealth of knowledge that you have. So today we're going to be talking about specifically about gut health. I hope to do more of these with you because I think you just have so much good stuff to share. So when we talk about gut health, why is that important to the average person that's just going to the gym, wants to look good, trying to, be a little bit healthier? Why is that so important?
Well, first, hold on. Let me start with one thing.
Okay.
All of you watching this video, I also want to brag a little bit and say that you're very blessed to have a gym owner and leader like Laurel and her team. I can't tell you how easy it is to get lost in the fold on the type of journey that you're on, and just about everything that she said about me is also true about her. I know you all know that, but I think it's worthwhile to say.
I did not pay him to say
No,
that.
surprise.
Thank you.
So remind me the question again. You said,
So, why is gut health so important? Because I don't think when people wake up in the morning, they're like, yes, my gut. Like, that's so important. I mean, they don't want a gut, but why is this so important to people that really may not know a whole lot about the role that gut bacteria play or the way that food really is processed in the body? They're just trying to look better and wanting to feel a little bit better. So, can you kind of break that down into layman's terms of why it's so important?
yeah, we'll try to connect the dots. So I'm sure anybody who has spent any time online has come across articles or podcasts or videos about people talking about the importance of your gut. Um, Gut is kind of an ambiguous term a lot of time. Like, what does it actually mean? When I reference the gut, when I'm helping my patients, I like to get very specific and make sure that we are on the same page as far as what it means. So, anatomically, this is going to get a little nerdy just for a second. Anatomically, the way that our bodies are set up is that you have a hole in your mouth, of course. Sounds really weird. And that tunnel that makes up the gastrointestinal tract is actually considered outside of your body. It's considered external to the human body. So everywhere from your mouth to your butt, external from the body. So the role of your GI tract is to take the things that you put inside your mouth, the food that you eat, hopefully it's mostly just food, and to turn that food into something that's at least semi-usable to the body, and that provides a benefit to it over the long haul. So that's one of the primary reasons why people have lately been emphasizing the importance of the gut. It's that, man, if you don't have an efficient, effective way to take those nutrients and those building blocks and incorporate them into who you are, problems can arise, right? So that's number one. That's kind of the starting point for most people, is understanding that literally, and I mean this like in the most literal sense possible, you are what you eat. That's so cliche, but the food you put in your mouth, you eat a piece of broccoli, the broken down bits of that broccoli now are part of your cells. Like,
Wow.
it's incredible. It's the
Right.
coolest thing in the world for me to think about.
And so, what are some of the problems of having poor gut health? Like, what are some of, I guess, like the symptoms or how people experience this and may not know I have something wrong with my gut?
Yeah. So another important thing to remember is that the gut also, one of its other I won't even say secondary, probably semi-primary purposes is to help inform your immune system about uh, its environment. So what I mean by that is that you've got a really dense set of immune system cells lining specifically the intestines, the small and large intestines, that when they come in contact with something, they'll inform your immune system, your literal white blood cells and other immune system modulators to tell your body you need to prepare for something, or they're just in a learning phase. And we're learning about what things this person's environment are going to bring to the table. So, and to get back to your question, Laurel, when we talk about the gut microbiome specifically, it's really easy to get caught in the weeds thinking about bacteria. Like, most of the time, the frame of reference we have for bacteria is that they're bad, they're pathogenic, that if you have bacteria that you come in contact with, you can get infected, which is true. But I think the greater conversation should be more framed in light of the fact that those bacteria, not just in your gut, but all over your body, are essential. They're necessary for us to have, but it's the populations that are there and the quantity of those individual populations that are really the important part, and the symbiosis, the way that those bacteria work in conjunction with our human physiology. It's crazy to think about. You probably heard this stat too, but we have, like, depending on who you talk to, like 5 to 10 times more bacterial cells inside of us than we have human cells. So in reality, you are more bacteria than you are human, which is insane.
Okay.
So one quick example that I want to give you for this, I mentioned to Laurel just a second ago before we jumped on the call that there's a book. I'll get the name of the book to Laurel. I'm blanking on the name of it right now, but it was written by a couple of PhD researchers at Stanford that studied the microbiome and found that there are certain classes of bacteria, 2 distinct classes in general. One of them is called Firmicutes. The other one is Bacteroidetes. I don't really know how to pronounce it to the best of
Firmicutes?
Firmicutes, yeah. Or Firmicutes or something like that.
Okay.
So if one of them is in really high proportion as compared to the other, the general tendency for external presentation of a human being is to be slender, to be a person that doesn't hold excess adipose tissue. When you flip that, at least in the research that they've done, when they found people that had those different, the opposite percentages, those people have a higher tendency to gain and to hold weight. That's just one of many details, of course, in the equation of fat gain and loss, but it's proving to be a non-insignificant detail. So I'll get back to kind of where my perspective is in my practice life. If I have a patient that comes to my office that is struggling to overcome weight gain, one of the tools that we have at our disposal is to measure those things, to look at their actual gut microbiome by testing their stool primarily is the way that you do that. And if we have a measure of those individual classes of bacteria, we know that you're one of those people that is in effect for, and we can tailor what it is that we do lifestyle-wise to try to combat that.
How does the average person keep that gut bacteria, the ratio where it needs to be?
There are a lot of variables, some of which are, I hate to say it, but kind of out of our control to a certain degree. Those are variables like the amount of environmental. I hate the word toxins, but that's kind of an applicable term right now. Like pesticides and herbicides used to grow produce. Mm. If you consume those things, they don't just have that effect on the produce that they were made to protect, but they also have or can have a negative effect on our GI tract by getting rid of certain types of bacteria or allowing others to flourish at a higher clip than what they should be. Mm. Not eating the right types of foods is also a very big one. I know we also discussed this a little bit earlier, Laurel, mm-hmm. that if you're a person that consumes high quantities of like Frankenfoods is a term that I've heard pretty often, like okay. Snickers bars instead of sprigs of broccoli or asparagus, the way that that changes the population of bacteria in your gut is pretty tangible for most people.
Mm.
And the way that I like to think about it is think about a really rural city that hasn't really been touched by modern civilization a ton. They grow their own food. They don't have crazy chronic health conditions that are rampant. Think about what would happen if you went into a town like that and you put a McDonald's in every corner, right? Now you have a readily available food source for people that in their history have not had that before. And you can imagine the effect that it will have on those people. Now make that a microcosm of what it looks like to be in our gut. If we are used to, if our physiology is used to consuming whole fruits and vegetables, really clean animal proteins, other types of macromolecules that are just in their natural state, and you start introducing foods that are highly processed, filled with tons of sugar, tons of artificial ingredients that came from a lab instead of from a garden, that will have an effect on your gut microbiome that can absolutely have an impact on a lot of major health areas, hormonally.
Totally. It's so interesting you said that because the other day or a couple weeks ago, all of the girls at TriFit went out to eat, and we splurged big time. We had like burgers and fries, and we had 3 desserts between the 5 of us. And we didn't talk to each other after that, like next day, too much. All of us were so sick the next day, stomach pains, bloating. I was so tired all day, grumpy. It was a pretty obvious change from, people who normally don't eat that way. And then what happened when we do, our body just revolted on us, essentially.
So no thanks.
No thank you. Get it out. So how does the average person start to implement these things and put them into practice? So let's say we know this is important. We know that we, need to be eating high quality proteins, good sources of fruits and vegetables and all these things. How does somebody start when maybe they're not the pinnacle of health right there? Like, what are your recommendations to somebody getting started and focusing on this?
Probably the most important variable that I have found in clinical practice is, I don't even have to use the word accountability, just like a team, a partnership with some other person or some other entity outside of yourself that's able to help you along the process. It's really tough as an individual to just make a decision to do something that's different than what you've done for years or decades and be successful in doing it, especially over the long haul if you want to make it like the new norm.
Mm-hmm.
So be a part of a community or find a practitioner or a support system that will give you some tough love if you need it, walk by your side through the process, but encourage you and make sure that you have a safety net in a certain sense to get past those bad habits. It's really tough. So that's number one. Number two, this is one that, of course, I'm going to firmly believe in very strongly because it's kind of the way that I do things in my practice. But I've also found that it's a lot easier for my patients or for people in general to continue to make decisions that are positive despite feeling different if they know that it's actually changing something objective. So one example, I have patients that have struggled with a problem called SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, or small intestine bacterial overgrowth, which basically means that bacteria have branched into a portion of the small intestine that they don't normally reside, that they shouldn't reside. So walking somebody through that process, oftentimes the beginning stages of it are a slog, meaning you're making proper decisions, you're doing what's right for yourself, but not necessarily feeling much different. And part of the reason for that is because the response that your body mounts to that negative scenario, it can last a long time. So if you do one thing that's not ideal, an immune system response can be mounted that lasts for a month or a month and a half. So, having something objective that you can test, like in that case for SIBO, oftentimes you can do a breath test that will tell you how much gas, methane, is produced from those bacteria in that portion of your intestine, that you have a concrete number. You get a number on a piece of paper that says this is where you're currently standing. You do that to begin with. You start to implement something, regardless of how you feel. You go back and you retest that number and you see that it has improved. So that's a point of encouragement for somebody to continue doing what they're doing despite feeling like they're banging their head against a wall.
Seeing the data.
Yeah. So that would be my encouragement to those of you who feel like you've been there, feel like I'm making the right decisions. I'm eating really well, I'm working out a lot, and I still am not feeling much of a difference or seeing much of a difference.
Right. And I'll add something to that. We were talking about this before we started chatting. Is we're both very big believers in proactively doing things to take care of your health. So our healthcare system is very reactive. We both call it sick care. So something hurts, something bothers us, it doesn't feel right, we go see somebody, they prescribe, instead of really taking a holistic view of your health, and being proactive in understanding what are my levels of things, what do they mean, what should I be taking, what am I deficient in, what do I, all those things. And that's what I love about what you do. So if you could just real quickly when we finish, tell people about, just a couple of the things that you do in your office in case they want to take that step and really, proactively do some of these things.
Sure. Before I get there, I want to go through one more quick little micro lesson that we talked about for a second, Laurel, that I don't want to forget to go through.
Okay.
The difference between probiotics and prebiotics.
Oh, okay.
So this is actually like really practically important, and it solidifies the importance of eating the good types of foods. So the term probiotic means beneficial bacteria. It's the bacteria that resides inside of you, right? Prebiotic refers to basically the food source of those probiotic bacteria, or the bacteria themselves. The coolest example that I've come across over the past couple of years in regards to this, I'll make it really quick, and this came across because my wife and I have a 2-year-old, and back when he was a little infant, I was just fascinated with the concept of nutrition for infants. So breast milk, contained in breast milk are a number of ingredients, of course, a very dynamic range of ingredients. The third most prevalent ingredient in breast milk are these substances called HMOs, human milk oligosaccharides. They're long chain carbohydrates that, when we have studied them, have found that they are actually not digestible by the human gut. So a baby drinks breast milk, gets these HMOs inside of him or her, but can't digest them, can't use them itself. So the next question becomes why? Like, why are they so plentiful, and what's their purpose? You take it a step further and realize that it's a source of prebiotic food for the beneficial bacteria in a baby's gut to help it to mature and to stay healthy during its initial stages in life. They consume those long chain carbohydrates, and produced are these things called short chain fatty acids that nourish the lining of the gut and protect it from harm. Incredible, right?
Interesting. So I don't want to, this is a polarizing topic, but I'm assuming those are not present in formula.
They're not currently present in formula. The last I have studied and read, there's a group that's trying to produce them for things like formula. Mm-hmm. They're not to that state yet from a technology standpoint, but it is on the radar. So hopefully someday it'll be a reality. But it's just another one of those examples of if it's at all possible to be a breastfeeding mama, it's a good decision.
Because that's preparing the baby's gut with those bacteria that will keep it healthy as foods introduced, if I'm understanding you
Mhm.
correctly. Interesting.
Yep.
Cool.
So, anyways, that's a segue into me, like from a practical standpoint, talking about how the same concepts are in play for adults. So, consuming those foods that are prebiotic sources of the good quantities, good colonies of bacteria in your gut is like super important. It's a thing. It's a really important thing.
So what are
So
those? What are those things?
they primarily come in the form of indigestible fiber. Like you've always been told to eat adequate amounts of fiber, so you stay regular from a bowel movement standpoint. But it's so much more important than that. Um, just as I talked about in regards to breast milk, those long chain um, fibers, most of them are like cellulose and other non-digestible fibers. Uh, a portion of those are consumed by your gut, and they provide that a similar benefit as what I mentioned in terms of the HMO, the breast milk component. So eating plenty of fibrous fruits and veggies is kind of like the starting point, and that's something that is a prerequisite for just about every patient that comes into my office if they want to make a positive change.
That's
So
so
that's like,
interesting because I never realized, like if people you're eating like what the role of the indigestible fiber is, and that's so
mhm,
interesting. Cool.
yep,
Awesome. So tell everybody
yeah.
about what you do.
So yeah, in essence, this is kind of a small example of what it is that I do on a grander scale in my office for my patients. They don't just come in with gastrointestinal problems or the desire to lose weight. They come in with all different types of problems. So um, the primary task that I can tell you that I'm tasked with is to help them understand more about the nature of themselves. I'll tell you that the more that you understand about you as differentiated from everybody else on the planet, the more you're going to be set up to succeed, to to thrive as you, if that makes sense.
Sure.
And you can learn individual things about yourself, like from a blood lab or any other type of sample, human sample, stool, urine, hair, whatever it is. The more you understand about your specific physiology, microbiology, whatever you're looking at, the more you can tailor how it is that you live to improve upon that.
Mm-hmm.
So we take those little bits of data and we translate them for our patients to make sure that they have an action plan that they can work towards, independent of anything that I would say or any opinion that I might have. They have concrete evidence that says, this is me.
Mm-hmm.
This is my starting point, and this is what I need to work toward.
And what's so
And
interesting is there's so many people, self included up until very recently. You take supplements, for example, but how do you really know based on the foods that you eat every day what areas that you need to supplement?
right,
Are you just taking a multivitamin where really you don't need this, but you need this?
yeah.
Um, that's what I find so fascinating about what you do. It's almost filling in the gaps of what a person needs and making them really whole. So
Yeah, that's
cool.
the hope.
So anything
Um,
else you want to share?
no, I mean, I'm open to individual questions. If any of you have anything that you're wondering about yourself or about a topic in general, you can reach out. Laura will provide my contact information. Um, keep at it. Like I said earlier, I know sometimes it can be tough to make positive change, especially if you don't externally see that immediately. But you have a team behind you that is awesome, and that's going to help give you the tools and the resources necessary to keep going. So,
Yes. And again, everybody, this is Dr. Hill with Hill Functional Wellness. His office is in Tempe, so we'll make sure that everybody has his contact information. You can reach out if you have questions or want to dig deeper into your health. Thanks so much for sharing all your knowledge with us today. I really appreciate it.
it's my pleasure. Hope to
Okay.
do it again.
Talk to you later.